Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week, I interview a fellow small business owner or an expert, and they share their stories, their lived experiences, the wins and the losses, and their best advice to help you, the listener, get the most you can from your own business. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. And thanks also to Kerr Capital, supporters of the show. So welcome to another edition of Small Business Banter Radio. Melina Morrison, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, is joining us today. Welcome in, Melina.
Hello.
Great to have you in. I'll just want to reinforce why we're having this discussion today, and it's fundamentally because cooperatives and mutuals as a business structure, particularly in regional areas, particularly with small businesses, has been around for a long time. It seems to be having a resurgence. And so I want to spend some time with you talking about what are cooperatives, what are mutuals, how does it benefit the communities, the businesses and so forth. But just briefly to introduce you, you're also currently CEO of BCCM. You're also a member of the IAG Industry Advisory Group on farm cooperatives, developing a white paper for, I guess, not restructuring, but reassessing the agricultural way of doing business. You're also a founding director back some time ago of Social Business Australia. So you've been a prominent advocate for member-owned businesses. So perhaps you could give us a little bit of, a potted history of your involvement and professional career, Melina.
Sure, Michael. Well, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to talk about my favourite subject, which is cooperative. I've been working in the sector, if you like, for the movement, sometimes called that, for 2 decades. So a long time now thinking about, writing about, communicating and advocating for this wonderful way of doing business. My background is really in the communications and, public awareness, public campaign, PR, promotion and marketing strategies. But I've really, in the last 2 decades made that about one thing, and that is to promote the idea that this is a fantastic way to do business. More people should be doing it, and to communicate what the competitive advantages are of being cooperative.
Excellent. Why don't we rip in straight away to your definition of a cooperative or a mutual, and also, just to keep things rolling, why is it a better model?
So the best way to think about cooperatives is really what makes them unique and different to other types of businesses. All businesses have owners, and in the case of a cooperative or a mutual, the owners are the members. And what that means is that the people that use the business, either as a consumer or a producer, if they're contributing into the business, or receiving a product or service from the business, are also the owners. And how this makes it distinct really from the other major corporate form in Australia is that they're not shareholder owned. A really neat way of thinking about this is that cooperatives make money to do something and not the other way around. So money is the fuel, the capital that goes into the business and the business structure itself to produce a good or service that meets a shared need of the group of people who own the business, who are also known as the members. And it's not so much a business model that's about doing something to make money or reward capital owners of the business. And another really important distinction is that ownership is about you jointly own the business in terms of your democratic right to have a joint voice and decision making in the business, rather than it being split up into little blocks of share ownership which relate to your capital ownership of the business.
Yeah, I mean, and that distinction is quite profound. With share ownership, it's the relationship between the shareholder and the business or the company is purely transactional and financial. Cooperatives, it's about, the members are the owners, so they've got a vested interest in seeing the business thrive, and perhaps do they have therefore objectives beyond just a straight financial return? Does it, how do you measure the success if you're a member?
Great question, Michael. Look, all businesses now have to have a social license to operate. This is the new zeitgeist, right? We really need business to be. We're talking about stakeholder capitalism, for example. We've been talking about social business for a long time, profit with purpose, and so on. All businesses need to create shared value. And that's the same for an investor-owned company. They're learning perhaps the hard way that if you don't think about all of the stakeholders, it's not good for the bottom line of the business, much less good for society and the economy. But in a cooperative or a mutual, that is it's not an add-on. Corporate responsibility is embedded in the very structure of the business. And when it comes to a cooperative, it's actually in the Constitution, where there are 7 internationally agreed principles that relate to the purpose of the business. And the purpose of the business is not only to make sure that members are benefiting from the business, that's the primary function, but all of the other stakeholders around the business. So these 7 cooperative principles, as they're known, talk about things like caring for the community, being interested in and benefiting the environment or the community in which you operate, being open and transparent and accountable, making sure that there is joint democratic decision making, and allowing for the democratic and the economic participation of the members. So this is burnt into the DNA of the business.
The cooperative and mutual model has been around for a very long time, right? Those principles date back. Have they been refreshed recently, or are they carry over from the very first cooperatives?
Yeah, I mean, really, if you want to think about the origins of mutualizing stuff between people so that there's a shared benefit and shared risks, we can go right back to Roman times, when the first idea of insurance or pooling risk, before there were investor-owned insurance companies, they were all mutual risk pools. So this idea of coming together, sharing, having joint ownership in an enterprise, and then divvying up, even the word dividend or divvying came from cooperative. The idea that at the end of the year or end of a financial reporting period, that you'd look at what surplus was remaining and you divvy it up equitably between the members. That's as old as corporate forms. So co-ops themselves as a legal structure date right back to the middle of the 18th century, and there were 2 main streams of development at that stage, and you can think that a lot of company formation was happening at that time. So they've really gone in parallel. But 2 things happened in the mid-18th century. People got interested in coming together and forming financial services institutions, which became credit unions, building societies, and now they're called mutual banks. So that kind of happened mostly out of Germany. And in the UK, as part of the Industrial Revolution and people needing to be able to collectively bargain for themselves, collectively buy things just to stay sustainable, we got the consumer cooperative movement arising. And today that's a globally dominant form of running supermarkets, retail and marketing operations where they're owned by members and consumers rather than shareholders. This
is a provocative term, but who's the enemy? Is it, are we we're seeing more interest in cooperatives and mutuals because it's, those have the 7 principles and it's, more balanced and inclusive. Is it railing against the dominance in some sectors of, just massive businesses that maybe don't have, they talk about having a broad range of stakeholder interests, but is that sort of where the energy is coming from, that there's a better and different way to do businesses?
So is this sort of some kind of anarchist revolution trying to disrupt capitalism?
Yeah.
Do you know what? Co-ops are a really enlightened form of capitalism because they work on the idea of enlightened self-interest, where people come together and what crystallizes for them is that it's better for them to collaborate in order to meet their own needs than it is to compete in a market. There is no enemy. If there's anything that we're railing against, it's the idea of corporate monoculture. So just like it's not great to have all of your eggs in one basket when it comes to, say, something like a global financial crisis, where you don't want most of your business exposed to the volatility of the share market. So it goes that if there is corporate diversity, you're going to have an economy that has a rich ecosystem of different types of businesses. And we say, I guess, in the movement, that there should be competition between business models as well as competition between businesses, because that mechanism of competition between businesses shapes markets. Cooperatives are really, really good for creating price signals that show that there is a truer representation of the cost to an end user of a business than is sometimes seen in markets where there is a concentration of ownership and therefore a concentration of capital and power, and you can get more sort of cartel pricing, for example.
Yeah, and a deeper understanding that the measure of broader success is more than just the P&L or the balance sheet. I mean, that's enlightenment is has to mean you take a broader view of that.
Well, and also, Michael, let's just think about the pandemic for a moment. How many times in one day do we hear a politician or a community member or ourselves saying we have to cooperate, we have to collaborate? Sometimes you just have to use the power of coming together for a collective need in order to do something. Cooperation is a really powerful form of making a more productive, efficient, and sustainable economy and outcome for a number of people. It doesn't mean you suppress, independence. This isn't sort of, a top-down model. It's a bottom-up model, which is why it's so good for small business.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. And by the way, on today's episode of Small Business Banter Radio, talking with Melina Morrison, who's the CEO of Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals. A lot of the work I do is with regional businesses, and this program goes out through a largely regional audience. SMEs seem to be, and communities for that matter, seem to be adopting community ownership, cooperative ownership, mutual ownership. Can you talk a little bit about directly the upside and the practicalities of doing that for SMEs and the communities that are so dependent on those SMEs?
Yeah, sure. So just back to something we were talking about before, which is who benefits from the business. In a cooperative, members can come in all different shapes and forms. And one of the main groups of members that form cooperative or, collaborate in business together are small business owners. And what cooperatives do is enable them to set up a legal vehicle under which they can cooperate to get things from the market that they can't access because they are subscale to access that. So just to kind of put that in plain English, let's think about a supply chain. You as a small business owner may be a regional producer and be engaged in an area of, say, agricultural production where you're producing a beautiful niche, regional product or commodity. Yeah.
Yeah, We had Marnie Roberts from Wine Grapes. It's a cooperative in South Australia, small producers of high-end fruit. Yeah.
Absolutely. So even those wine growers, they need to maybe export their wine grapes. They might need to get engaged in value adding, so making the wine, marketing the wine, selling the wine.
Yep.
They may want to collaborate around processing, packaging, or collaborate around some of the inputs to their business, such as buying the inputs to farming themselves, and all of those things. It's an economy of scale, right? So you as an independent, what people forget about farming in Australia, if it's not sort of large monocultural and maybe even foreign owned, then it's family farming, and family farming are essentially SME businesses. If they want to keep that independence, stay there as independent business owners at the farm gate, but they still want to have the footprint of a larger entrant into a market and be a price maker, not a price taker, a cooperative is the classic and very successful model. And many of those brands, if you guys like a vodka and cranberry juice on a summer's day, for example, Ocean Spray is just, one of the classic examples of global marketing brands under which a cooperative exists of the growers.
Yeah, excellent. You talked earlier about, competition in business models as well as, just between businesses. And I think one of the things with SMEs is they're a lot of times started and operate on the basis of expertise around doing something in particular, and everything else is a bit of a distraction, right? Financial control, bookkeeping, marketing, some people build businesses around financial control and marketing, but, I think we need to recognise we're, probably better at one thing, and the cooperative is a way to focus on that one thing and let, the group do the rest of it. That's for the betterment of the economy to have a really vibrant, successful base of small businesses. They need to be spending most of their time on the stuff they do really well. So does the model lend itself to other industries, or agriculture is a big one and a common one? Are there other industries that are have a need for a cooperative model or that suit a cooperative model?
Well, 8 in 10 Australians are members of at least one cooperative or mutually owned business. So it's huge, and they're big in ag. One of Australia's largest agricultural businesses, which is a consortium or a collaboration of around 4,000 family farms, is CBH Group, the Western Australian grain exporter. So that's just an example of in ag. But where they have really big membership numbers is in financial services. There are still around 70 credit unions or mutual banks. Motoring mutuals, they're all cooperatives. Whether it's RACV or RAA or RACQ, they are member-owned organisations. They're still big in health services, particularly non-profit health funds. So they exist across the economy. There's a really, really interesting emerging area, though, in regional Australia, and that's community buybacks. That's a classic area where a cooperative will arise, is in a market which is either exited, so that people can't get the good or services, or there's a social or an economic need that people can't meet from the market, so they form a cooperative. Cootamundra, the good people of Cootamundra, Target pulled out about 140 or so stores during the COVID crisis. That means people can't get socks and undies, from their local high street. So the good people of Cootamundra have formed a co-op to buy out their Target store, and they're going to run the retail store for themselves as a community.
That's excellent to hear. The choice is kind of pretty dim, isn't it? Like if you let it go, then it's another reason you have to leave and drive a lot further to get something that's kind of a basic and essential. So, that's excellent. So what does it take for a community to kind of get a cooperative together? Like, practically
the first
speaking?
and most important thing is that a group of 5 or more people have to agree that they have a shared need, that they're willing to willing to think about coming together as a group and running as an enterprise. Because the really important part of this is that in a cooperative, it's not a loose collaboration. It's an actual legal corporate model like a company. And inside the Constitution is this very important thing called the active membership provision. And what the active membership provision says is that that's the thing which we, the members, agree to do collectively in the business that's going to make it sustainable. So, and that skin in the game is how you get the mutuality, the reciprocity of the business working. So that's a sustainable model. That means you've got a business case. As your listeners will know, it's all well and good to have a great business idea, but if you can't make surplus to your operating costs, you're out of business. So do we have a going, hi guys, we've met often in a pub. I have to say that's how co-op start. You have the same problem I have. We can't get our petrol now because the petrol station's closed, so we're going to have to drive, 100K round trip to get bloody fuel. So do we agree that there's enough of a market here for us to buy out that petrol station and run it as a community-owned enterprise?
Yeah, okay. And interesting you say, pubs. I mean, I was in Sea Lake a couple of weekends ago, and I often visit Aireys Inlet. Both, I don't know what the formal structure is, but I understand them both to be.
So they're co-ops. Yep, they're proper legal co-ops, wonderful co-ops. Yeah.
Another example of an essential service that needs to be retained, and it's a part of the commercial infrastructure of the town. Some things you can transition to online, and you can do your banking maybe online if you've got good internet, but you can't get a beer virtually. Actually,
cooperatively owned breweries are another burgeoning area. So, yes,
right.
Communities, the oldest community-owned hotel in Australia is in Renmark in South Australia. There's some great microbreweries coming together because people share a passion for beer and for the joint facilities to make that. There's just so many areas that, in fact, Victoria, around your region, has been a great hotbed of community-owned enterprises springing up into areas where the market, has ceased to provide that, or there's no trading retail outlet.
Yeah, look, and I would think the environment generally now, because tourism has having a bit of resurgence. I mean, in and out of COVID, but in the main, you can't go elsewhere. You can't even go out of the States at the minute. But so it probably underpins or reinforces the opportunity for some of these key tourism businesses to the pubs and the food places. So I'm a community or a group of business owners out in a regional area somewhere in Australia. The kind of assistance they need to get cooperatives or a mutual off the ground, is that something they head to BCCM? We'll put it in the show notes, but is that the sort of level of inquiry you want to help foster a growing number of cooperative-owned businesses?
Yes, absolutely. Please come to us. Visit. It's really simple to remember, bccm.coop. For co-op, which is COOP. That's the website. We've created a whole toolkit, a one-stop shop of self-help resources because we believe people should be able to do this freely and affordably. But if you need personalised help, we love to do that as well. And everything that we provide can be presented remotely. Now we're used to that with COVID. But you'll find, in fact, there's one part of the website that says help and advice, and that is how to set up and run a cooperative, including everything you need to do there to get your documentation together and to set the enterprise up, as well as, contact us if you need personalised information.
Excellent. Oh, well, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. But I think the message is loud and clear that targeting Cootamundra is an example, cooperatively owned brewery. There's
renewable energy.
Maybe.
Share your insurance. You can share your costs of having to provide your own, risk pooling protection that, insure yourself. You can come together to buy energy, or you can actually invest in a jointly community-owned renewable energy asset like Hepburn Wind. Hepburn Wind, those two wind towers that in the lovely town there, they're owned by the community, which means that they're offsetting they're doing something good for the planet, offsetting their energy usage. But also, collaborating around a local renewable energy asset. Just so many areas we can go in. Back and front office functions of a business, as you said before, Michael. The things that make it difficult or too hard or too expensive or difficult to do as an individual business owner, you can do collectively.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So there's no reason for not reaching out and as a community for kind of having a good look at what different ways to do things. Melina Morrison, thank you so much for your time today. A really informative, instructive conversation. I hope it sparks some communities and businesses to think about taking that next step.
Could I put
Thank you very much.
Plug in for our ABC documentary?
Sure can.
Fight Back Farmers. Go to iView on ABC. There's 3 fantastic new cooperative stories as part of an hour documentary, which is about how these farming communities in Victoria and South Australia have taken back a stake in their local economy using cooperatives.
Excellent. All right, that's another great example of the movement doing stuff. Good on you. Thanks, Melina.
Thanks, Michael.
So that is all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. I continue to be inspired bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. If you want to listen to any past episode, jump onto your podcast platform of choice and search Small Business Banter. There you will find a diverse and fascinating collection of small business owners and experts openly discussing and sharing their experiences. For any of the links, resources or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact me, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And it would be great to have you tune in the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.